order. Our first public hearing on the school reopening plan and use of ESSER funds. If we can all stand as you are able to say Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have to take roll? Yes. Okay.
So, thank you.
You know what, we're going to take roll call first.
Collins.
Here.
Coyle.
Here.
Kilberg.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Yusuf Abramson. Bessler.
Here. Okay. Now.
Okay, so thank you. We have a brief presentation tonight. It's required by our acceptance of ESSER grant funding. So what are the ESSER grant funds? They are the funds that are released by the federal government to the states and then distributed through ISBE to schools to help schools reopen, guarantee reopening to the least restrictive environment possible for the fall of this year. So this slide, I won't read all there's a lot of information on this slide. This will be available on the website after the presentation, and I did share it with board members prior to the meeting. But what this does is just outline how the monies can be spent. So District 207 got the following allocations about ESSER funds. ESSER 1, about $678,000. ESSER 2, $2.5 million, and ESSER 3 will be $5.8 million. This is a timeline by which it needs to be spent. September 30th of each subsequent year, releasing to the release of those monies. I'll get to how we're spending them. What we've done so far. So when ESSER 1 was released with the Trump administration, what we did immediately, we were in the midst of the pandemic at that point. And so what we did immediately was there was a non-public share that had to be provided to non-public schools. But really the bulk of our spending went into personal protective equipment, cleaning and sanitation. One of the things we did last year, which will continue again this year, is the school year extension program. And what that enabled us to do is to target students who were having trouble being successful in a remote environment and extend that learning into the summer, pay for teachers and support, and tech support, to ensure that those students were able to work into the summer to move towards their passing grade. Also, a lot of the summer social emotional supports, online remediation programs, ed technology, and professional development. So the plans for ESSER 2 and 3 combined will be to continue with any of those. We still need all of those supports for students. As you know, there were times this year when we were remote learning. We're continuing those programs to ensure that we minimize learning loss and that they can start next school year in the best situation possible to be successful. The other part, and I'll let Mary just refer to this, or you can maybe describe this a little bit, is that one of the things that you're able to spend those funds are on HVAC upgrades. And so Mary, do you want to talk a little bit about how we're going to use some of that money for that?
Yeah, as you recall, part of our construction, we're putting in a system in many of the spaces called a dual outside air system, which provides 100% fresh air. So there's 100% exchange of air in the classroom. Previously with the unit ventilators, there was about a 25% exchange of fresh air. So this is what is viewed as one of the best air quality systems that you can have, that constant change of air. So we're spending we anticipate about $4 million of ESSER funds on that.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. So, as part of the referendum, right, we as taxpayers for a certain amount of money, we were going to do a build out. The build out included HVAC, correct, in all 3 buildings. So, this $4 million, is that going to enable there to be $4 million less that will go towards that would have been paid for by the
So if you recall a couple months ago, we talked about bid package 3 and what are some of the things that we're going to do. The answer is twofold. One, yes, it will replace part of it, but 2, specifically at East, the music choir wing was not something that we had planned on doing. we're gonna target that area. But we think that that's gonna be about $2 million. So that'll leave $2 million to do some of the systems that we would have done anyway. But like at West, we changed the design of the system. In C-Wing, the system had 5 coil units per room, 2 large, 3 small. The larger ones we found were a little bit noisier than we wanted them to be. So then in the subsequent bid packages, knowing we had additional funds through ESSER, we changed the design to be all the smaller ones, provide a quieter environment for students, but that comes with a cost because the smaller ones are more expensive than the larger ones. So it's kind of a combination of both. We're using it to offset a little bit, but we're also providing upgrades that we had not initially planned for with the construction money.
And now we can do.
And now we can do it.
And can I just follow up on the 25% that you mentioned? Is that a number that we're now improving that number?
Oh, so
Increasing the number?
the unit ventilators are now gone. They are replaced by the 100% dual outside air system exchange units.
So
that
yes, we
have. So
completely
we are vastly
upgraded that.
improving
Okay.
our indoor air quality.
The other piece that we'll be looking into is filling some transportation gaps that we have as a result of our PACE bus service. One of the things we're working, Dr. Wiles is working very diligently with PACE to try and get full service back to all of our students, since that is our main mode of transportation for students who need transportation to get to school. And so we did identify some gaps between stops for students. So we'll be looking to fill those gaps using the ESSER funds as well. For next year and beyond, we've always planned to open 5 days a week in the fall. So that we'll be back to school as much as normal as possible last year. These monies are specifically meant to be used to make that happen, and so that's what we've been trying to do. We will be expanding some things such as the virtual academy options. So we know we'll still have some students that need to remain remote, either for medical reasons or possibly because they have someone who's medically compromised at home. So these funds will help support that as well with teaching opportunities and also any tech that's needed to make that happen. And then, as Mary mentioned, some of those capital replacement projects to improve air quality. So again, safety protocols will be in place. Following, basically what we're trying to do is we know we're going to maintain some of the more stringent cleaning protocols that go along as a result of COVID-19. But our goal is to have the least restrictive protocols available so students can have the most normal learning environment next year. So it's already, if you've been at the graduations, you know it's already starting to feel a lot more like it used to. And so we hope that'll be the case to start next year as well. And that's it. Are there any questions? Any questions?
One other thing, Mayor, and this is more for you, Mary. As we move along in this process, will you be giving us some kind of accounting of the monies that are spent on these various items, or?
I mean, we certainly can. So for each phase of ESSER 1, 2, and 3, we have dedicated accounts that track it, just like we would any federal money. So at any point in time, we can measure and balance out how much we've spent. And I mean, it's going to be required to be on our single audit information and our CFA, so that you can see that the receipt of the funds with the expenditures.
And also there's deadlines by which each of the funds needs to be spent, so maybe at that point we'll be able to see.
I think our goal is by the end of this summer to be completed with ESSER 1.
Okay.
So we're trying to use up ESSER 1, report out, start ESSER 2.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to do a big in-depth, but just
No,
maybe at the conclusion of each of those.
Yeah, we feel confident we can meet the spending deadlines as required.
And then if we have those consistent report outs, that would be good.
I just had one more,
Yes.
and this is to Sean. Could you just go to the slide, the previous slide, just for a second? This is something that I think we're probably going to talk about in the future, but I'm just curious. Increase in blended approaches as part of the new landscape school. Is that something that you're going to down the line?
Where am I doing it?
It's curriculum, but I mean, I know where are you doing it, but are we going to get a discussion on that, or not a discussion?
We can absolutely talk about what does that look like, and we have our principals here. What does that look like in the buildings? Part of the restructure and the construction that we've done is going to allow quite a bit more flexibility for students. And so when we talk about the blended approaches and models, the idea of the student sitting in class, for 80 minutes straight now, and then the bell ringing, you get up and leaving, yeah, that's going to happen a lot, but there's also going to be opportunities for the students to be other places in the building doing work, freeing up some opportunities for teachers to either work with students who are doing something maybe more advanced or students who need some support and remediation in other ways. So that blended approach we've been doing now for a few years. In fact, I think we have over 200 teachers that have gone through our blended learning professional development. And so that continues to grow. But certainly at any time, if you can either go through a building, or if you'd like me to do a report, or we can talk about that as an ed committee report, talk about what that blended learning looks like.
We actually have a video on it. Sure.
Yeah, I would like to.
I'd like to bring that to the full board
Yes.
in August before we start school again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So let's do that. Okay. This is oh, sorry, Terry. Go ahead.
So, for the amount of ESSER funds, are all districts the same, or did we have to provide information to them to give them
The
to get this amount of
The
money?
state
or-
made this determination based upon your district. So
The
every
formula.
district, related to title funding and things of that as well. So ISBE said, here's your formula, here's your money. We had no input into that.
And in many regards, we are lucky we had some construction pre-planning, because with so much more money going to school districts, they're going to be spending a lot of it on infrastructure and indoor air quality, and there is going to be, we project, a shortage of equipment to start to do things. So we're, in many regards, we're lucky we were on the front end of that.
For the timeline wise, so when do we expect to take use of all this fund?
September 30th, 2023.
Okay, is there anybody in the public or that's attending that has any questions or statements? This is a public hearing for that very purpose regarding this issue. This is before our regularly scheduled. Okay, if not, we're going to adjourn the special board meeting and start our regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting of June 7th, 2020. We've already sent our planning